What's going on, friends? Every Harley-Davidson rider wants to make their Harley-Davidson bigger. Meaning if you've got a 88, you're looking at a 95-inch kit. If you've got a 96, you're probably wanting to go to a 103, maybe even a 110. If you got a 103, you might be looking at going to 107, a 110, maybe even bigger than that, maybe going up to that 117. It just doesn't stop when it comes to increasing bore sizes. But what might surprise you about your twin cam engine, or any twin cam for that fact, is just how closely related each iteration of the twin cam actually is. Harley-Davidson has always been about evolution and not revolution. And what that means is basically Harley-Davidson engines tend to pretty much stay the same with little bitty tweaks here and there and a little bit more power gains as the years go by and these engines evolve over their lifespan before they're eventually completely phased out in whole. Now, this was heavily illustrated on the twin cam engine as these engines, well, they increased in bore size, but for the most part, other than little tweaks, the engines pretty much stayed the same over their entire lifespan. Now, the good thing for you there is that you could do a lot with your existing bore size on your twin cam platform, depending on how you look at it. Now, if you're riding a twin cam 96, sure, you can go out and purchase a big bore kit, make it a 103. You could go up bigger with it, but think about what you've already got at 96 cubic inches, and think about the guy with an 88 that's already having to buy a big bore kit, trying to make his 88 a 95. Think of the 96-inch engine as kind of a hot rod version of the 88. The only difference is that the 96 has the 3.75-inch bore, but it also has a 4.75-inch stroke, as opposed to the 88, which has a 3.75-inch bore, but it has a 4-inch stroke in it. Now, to make an 88 at 95, you're actually bolting on cylinders that have the same bore at 3.875 as the twin cam 103. The only difference is you have the shorter stroke with the 4-inch crank. Now, when you do that, you're not getting 103 cubic inches because of the 4-inch stroke. You'd have to go to the 4.75-inch stroke crank in your 88, then you would have a 93, then you would have a 103. Now, that right there makes your twin cam 96 pretty attractive to start building on. And of course, you could go with a larger displacement, but honestly, with that 96 cubic inch motor, you could already do quite a bit right there and save yourself a little bit of money and not having to go ahead and put a big bore kit on it, just swap the camshaft out. Guys, please don't forget, you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. So what kind of power is a guy with an 88 making that swapped over to a 95, went out and got that big bore kit, had to pay for the extra parts, had to pay for the extra labor, as compared to somebody who's already got a 96 and just slide a cam in? Well, on that 95, you're looking at, with the right set of cams in it, just basically a wood TW6-6, you're looking at right about 100 horsepower and 110 foot-pounds of torque. Now keep in mind, that might be with a little added compression going to that 95-inch kit. Now, the beauty of the 96 twin cam is that you already have the cam chest updates that you would want to do to an 88, so you're saving money right there. Not to mention, you're already at 96 cubic inches, so you're not really having to go out and do a big bore upgrade unless you want to. You can save some money, still go with the TW6-6 grind in the 96, which is a good bolt-in cam for that engine, and that's going to net you roughly about 93 horsepower and roughly 100 foot-pounds of torque. Now, that is with the stock compression at roughly about 9.2 to 1, and not only that, that's flat top pistons, that's nothing else, stock compression, and you're getting that kind of power from a direct bolt-in cam. That's a pretty good power upgrade over a stock 96. Now, that is one benefit to that 96, is not really having to mess with the cam chest unless you absolutely want to. If you're going to be in there to do a cam, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and do a billet cam plate and go ahead and upgrade to a high volume oil pump. But if you're going to do absolutely nothing else other than change the cam in there, just make sure you change the inner cam bearings. That is very important. You never want to go back with cam bearings when you're swapping a cam. You always want to put some new ones in there. Now, here's the part that nobody really likes to hear, nobody really wants to talk about when it comes to upgrading a twin cam 96. While you already have some benefits in place of having a larger displacement versus the 88, and you're going to make plenty of usable power with that 96-inch displacement, even with the stock compression, just with the cam swap, there are some things on the 96 that you're going to want to address so you don't have issues later on down the road. The Twin Cam 96 for the most part is a very solid and reliable platform. But when you start adding horsepower and torque to these, some of the problems that kind of were basically left sleeping on these engines, they can wake up and cause you some headaches. So just a few things with the 96 that you want to address, but for the most part, it's nothing internal. These are pretty easy to get to, I would say, with some mechanical knowledge, but still just something you're going to want to keep in mind to change out if you're riding a 96, so you don't have a breakdown and a failure later on down the road caused by adding more horsepower and torque. Now, first thing on the 96 that you're going to want to look at when you start adding horsepower and torque is, you might know, the 96 was notorious for compensator failures. On the 96, they carried over the old style of compensator from the 88, basically, and, well, it didn't exactly hold up with the increased power and torque from the stock 96. So if you go and start adding horsepower and torque to that, the drivetrain generally not going to take it, especially the compensator, so it's not a bad idea to upgrade to the Screamin Eagle compensator, or just go ahead and eliminate the problem in whole and put in just a regular old drive sprocket in there. Not to mention, if you want to change the drive sprocket out, that is a lot cheaper way of changing your gearing if you want to go a little taller or a little shorter on your gearing. Now, in part, changing that compensator out, that is a lot less work you have to do versus if you had an 88, where I would definitely highly recommend on that 88 you be upgrading that cam chest to bring it up to the 2007 and later specs, which is a new cam plate, new tensioners, new oil pump. But this is a lot less invasive having the 96, which just wanted to upgrade the compensator so that way you don't trash your drivetrain with your added horsepower and torque. Now, while you're in the primary, another area you might want to go ahead and address on your Twin Cam 96, this was the first year of the automatic primary chain tensioner. In theory, this is a great idea. But the issue with the automatic primary chain tensioner is that it tends to over-tighten the chain. Especially if you're getting on it really hard, you're banging through the gears, it can over-tighten the chain, and what happens is it starts putting stress on the transmission, and it starts putting stress on that compensator. It starts pulling these things together, and this right here is what led to, in my opinion, a lot of the issues that you saw with the 6-speed transmission. The 6-speed transmission is actually pretty tough. It just got a bad rap, basically being side-loaded by the over-tightened primary chain. When this happened, you started seeing seal failures, you started seeing bearing failures. These things were really common in the 6-speed transmission. And in my opinion, that was really attributed back to the automatic primary chain tensioner over-tightening it. So you might want to go with something like the Screamin Eagle, maybe the Hayden. Something that's going to give it a little bit of give and allow a little bit more slack when it comes to that primary chain. Because you get it over tightened, everything's getting pulled together, that's when you start having issues. Not only that, the press cranks, I do believe that little bit of side loading like that can exacerbate that run out on those cranks. So while the Twin Cam 96 had quite a bit more power over the 88, you can get some really usable power out of the Twin Cam 96 with just a basic cam swap. Anywhere from 93 to 100 horsepower and 100 foot-pounds of torque, maybe a little bit more. That's really going to depend on your exhaust and tuning. The example I showed you here, this was just a really basic cam swap with a set of slip-ons on it. And 93 horsepower and roughly a little over 100 foot-pounds of torque, that's not bad for a cam swap, especially when you didn't have to do a big bore kit, mess with any high compression pistons or anything else. Straight bolt-in cam, ready to go. But as I mentioned on your 96, if you're going to have the primary open, you might as well go ahead and look at changing out that compensator, getting that updated, even going with the sprocket, getting rid of the automatic tensioner in there, going with a manual, and also while you're in there, may not be a bad idea to go ahead and upgrade your clutch a little bit. You can put a heavier clutch spring in it. Just little things to help you guys out so that you don't go put more power in your 96 and then have something give out and then the bike's back down again. That's the last thing we want. When you got it down, that's the time to go ahead and do the upgrades and get things cleaned up, fixed up. That way, you have miles and miles and years of trouble-free service out of your bike. But you guys that ride that 96, I want your opinions. Do you guys want to go ahead and upgrade the bore, or would you be good with just a cam swap? Getting about mid-90s on the horsepower and a little over 100 foot-pounds of torque. Are you good there, or are you going to want some more by bolting on a 103 or maybe even a 110 kit? Let me know in the comments. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars. I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.